Oi guys, Scrappy and today, hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Just a couple of weeks after OpTic, Pred and FaZe's Search and Destroy coach were beefing it out on the timeline, the OpTic versus FaZe drama does not seem to be going away, with Shotzzy absolutely slamming Tupac last night over a couple of games. This movement that Shotzzy shows is pretty unbelievable, and this is in Modern Warfare 3. Imagine what is going to happen next year in Black Ops 6 when the omnidirectional movement officially comes into play. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. The Iceman is back. We've seen the confirmation over the last couple of days. Minnesota Rocker now confirming it as well. Accuracy returned to the starting lineup for the Minnesota Rocker. They play one critical game this weekend that will be absolutely influential in terms of whether this team is going to make the World Championship or whether they are not. Bit of drama going down yesterday in challenges, as always, as I always say. This is funny again. The FACEIT administrators, the admins, still don't seem to have like a full grasp on how to manage things here in COD. So Denz's team, they were told, okay, look, you've got to pick a side on a certain map by this time. They didn't pick it by that time because the team they were meant to play was like still playing their other game. So they picked the side 1 minute late, and then they were told, you're going to get forfeited the map because you didn't pick the proper side or something. And Banter's like, wait, hang on a second, what are you talking about? Eventually this decision got reverted and the series did start 0-0. We got some interesting results though. Certainly this result is actually really important in the context of the entire season. So this is OmniTU, very good team. Weeman, Vortex, Mythics, Hixie. They got reverse swept yesterday by Team Falcons, who have now advanced to the grand finals. So yeah, Team Falcons 7-1. This is the Saudi Arabian team featuring King of Body and others. King of Body is maybe the only name here that many of you may recognize. He was the player that used to 1v1 Illy and others back in the day. They'd put up, 4K, 5K on the line, and they would play, I think what they used to do in games like Cold War and stuff is play a Nuketown 1 versus 1. Maybe they did other maps, but I think I used to watch some of these. Sometimes when they'd play a 1 versus 1, they'd play one on Illy's host or somebody else, they'd play one on King of Body's host, and then see who gets the most kills combines. And that's basically how it would be, because from Saudi Arabia. Now, as of late, they've managed to form a good team over there. And this is why I still have some serious questions on exactly what is going to be happening when the Esports World Cup comes around, right? Because Falcons, a pretty good team in that region, I'd imagine that they're probably going to be attending, right? So how is the qualifier going to work? Are they going to have a qualifier in region that Falcons are probably going to win? Or are they just going to invite Falcons, right? Because they're Saudi Arabian owned. What's the plan going to be for that one? Because there are 12 CDL teams invited, plus 4 that are going to attend through various qualifiers around the world, but it's not clear how those qualifiers are going to work, what exactly the plan is going to be. What if several of the CDL teams decide not to attend? Will they say, okay, Falcons can go instead? What does that mean for the World Cup? Lots of questions on this, but, the team is good. And it also means that Falcons as an organization, because their team is pretty good, are not necessarily going to just, drop their roster and sign somebody else. Because we've seen this in the Warzone side and in the Apex side, that effectively Falcons have just signed the best players from those respective games. And if OpTic don't attend or whatever, there was some talk about could Falcons sign Shotzzy, Pred, Scrappy, HyDra, just form a God squad for the tournament. But if they've got their own good team they want to play with, then of course, that's another question entirely. This is what we've seen, by the way, obviously happen on the Warzone side as well, which is happening earlier on in the tournament. Jukies, Lennon and Tommy, of course, old school COD Pro for various different teams over the years. The Fnatic Infinite Warfare team with Scraps, Waskin and Sunny B always lives long in the memory. Then he was very briefly on the Dallas Empire, if you guys remember this, actually, when the CDL came around. He coached for Dallas for one event before Rambo got his visa sorted and arrived. But yeah, legendary pro player on Splice and others. Back in the day, he then went to Warzone, right, basically when the CDL started, killed it over there, and he's going to be competing in the Esports World Cup for rather a lot of money. What do you guys think about this question right now? MVP of the season race. To me, it's still kind of a two-horse race as it stands, but that could definitely change. And, it is arguable that there are more contenders in play at the moment. I think it realistically is between one of these 4 guys. I think that obviously if Ultra were to, let's say, win Major 4, it's probably going to be Scrappy. There's no one else on Toronto that can realistically win it. And on New York, there's no one else on New York that can realistically win it other than HyDra. I think for HyDra, though, it's quite the push because they've not won an event this year. Let's say New York, arrive to Burbank, they dominate the event. HyDra has like one of the best stat lines of all time. Then we'll have had 4 events this season with 4 different winners. And at that point, you can argue HyDra potentially MVP of the season. But I think unless that happens, you know, obviously New York have to win the event in Burbank to be, you know, to get HyDra the MVP. And even if they do, is it enough? I'm not so convinced personally. So really, it's more like a 3-horse race, I would say. Worth clarifying as well that the MVP doesn't consider the World Championship. There is a regular season MVP and a championship weekend MVP or a postseason MVP, whatever they decide to say. So effectively, after Major 4, the MVP will be crowned. So if it's Toronto, then it will be Scrappy. If it's FaZe, there are some other options. I don't think it's going to be aBeZy. I think Simp has been clear of aBeZy this year. It could potentially be Cellium, but I think that's kind of unlikely. Drazah is also not impossible to be the MVP, given the way that he's played over the last couple of months. But I think that right now, it would have to take Drazah to continue performing at a really good level for FaZe, and Simp to kind of fall off to not get the MVP, and of course FaZe not to do so well at the Major, which feels very unlikely. But probably what's going to happen here is whoever of those 3 teams wins Burbank, which is probably going to be one of those 3 teams, probably the player we see on screen here will be the MVP. Shotzzy definitely is in the conversation as well. The numbers in terms of slaying and KD probably don't quite tell the story on that, but in terms of pure impact and how good Shotzzy's been for OpTic, certainly in the last few months, no doubt that he would be the front runner in my eyes. But nonetheless, the general feeling is it's probably between Scrappy and Simp, and you can actually see here by the player cards just how neck and neck these guys have been so far this season. You know, pun not intended on the neck and neck stuff, because if these guys actually were to go neck for neck, then, you know, there's only one winner, as we full well know. But it's been a 99 overall every single stage for Scrappy so far, and we can actually see how this is looking for Major 4 so far. The numbers here will probably get better just because when they go to the Major, their record gets a little bit better, but it's actually not like they've had unreal stages so far. Again, for Scrappy in the respawns, like, the trend is so unbelievably consistent, how he is basically always 99 in kills per 10, damage per 10 in all of the respawn modes. But again, the search and destroy has been a bit up and down this season for Scrappy, and to be honest, at the start of the year, it was probably Scrappy's search and destroy and actually Simp's control that weren't quite as good compared to where their other game modes were. But even now, you know, Scrap's at a 0.8 this stage in search and destroy so far, Simp is at a 1.45. So it's still early days, I think, but probably it's between these two in terms of who's going to win the MVP this season. Shotzzy, though, should certainly still be in the conversation. We've talked over the last few days, the omnidirectional movement arriving into the game. I'll share for you guys in a second, actually, a clip from the OpTic podcast where they talk about, well, Shotzzy talks about how much he's been looking forward to these new movement mechanics arriving into the game. But this is what he's capable of doing here, even on Modern Warfare 3. So this is Tupac, of course, search and destroy guy for FaZe. We saw him get into some beef with Pred the other day because, well, I'll share that for you guys in a second. Actually, why not we just do it now if you guys haven't seen it yet. So basically, Pred and Tupac were playing some search and destroy chals or some Pro 8s in search and destroy. Pred then said, oh, you know, this Tupac guy here, he is dropping a donut because he dropped a donut here on this 6-star search and destroy. Clearly, Tupac wasn't so happy about that, and, you know, he came back and says, Kangaroo Jack, you were welding, and then he puts out all these screenshots, and then, you know, obviously we had this reply on June the 6th, where they then went back and forth, and Fred's like, look, I wasn't doing anything crazy, I just called you awful, and they obviously have the beef, as we saw a few days ago, and maybe it's now resolved to a certain extent. But obviously, OpTic versus FaZe has been a big rivalry, and that is most certainly not changing anytime soon. So I'll share the clip from Shotzzy's point of view, and then also from Tupac's point of view, on exactly what's been going on here.
Holy shit.
What?
Find Zach and Pop.
He's top three still. Jesus, I'm on it.
Holy shit.
That's fine. He's top three.
Going top fire right now. To bet, like, to the single. Good job, dude.
Yeah, he's single. He has to be single. He
Yes.
Look, he's not clicking it in. He's just
like that's just regular sprint though.
Yeah, I don't think you can tech sprint.
Dude, if you, I mean, how would you even be able to tech sprint backwards?
That's insane. That's insane.
Like that would be.
I don't even think you can do that.
Actually, just by watching that, actually, I mean, no, I don't know, because he's just he's only single sprint. That's like the jock sprint.
Yeah, like the regular.
Yeah, so
like
I really wonder if you
this
could actually like
be
be at your maintain like.
Nah, you couldn't. No way.
I think you could, dude.
Nah, no way. This what I find
If you
insane.
that is crazy.
This is insane. I'm gonna abuse the.
No, I'm not
fuck
gonna lie.
out of it.
This what I've always like wanted in a game is literally to where you could dive and shoot at the same time. I know it's like so unrealistic, but I've always wanted that in a.
I just wonder what the
game.
pull-up time's gonna be. You know, like if like as you're diving, if it's gonna be an instant shoot or it's gonna be like a animation.
Or
and
if
then-
you
and then
dive,
shoot.
is there gonna be like recoil or?
Bro,
what's the
look at
word?
that. That
That
slide
slide
is
is insane.
fucking insane.
That slide is
look at that
insane.
shit.
So Shotzzy's made it quite clear that he's been very excited for the possibility of stuff like this. We've seen every year the game has come out, even Modern Warfare 2 it happens, Shotzzy will find some ways to abuse the movement mechanics, and even it's true that, I mean, that clip, like, I don't think anybody else can do that. There's certain players in the league that you always wonder, I think, sometimes, if you showed me that player's perspective, their point of view, and you took off the name, right, so you couldn't see who was actually playing, which players could you probably still tell who it was based on their playstyle? Now, over the years, let's say a couple of years ago, you'd probably say Cellium, because he'd be saying it all the time, and you could probably tell by the way Cellium plays who's him and who's not. I think Dashy's just raw aim is actually quite unique. Like, it's so snappy and precise that I don't really think there's any other AR player that looks quite how Dashy looks when you watch his point of view. So that's one. But from an SMG side, and I think HyDra as well, you could possibly tell just because of how good his centering is, how clean his movement is. I don't think there's any player that's POV looks quite like HyDra as well. But then Shotzzy, of course, is a different story because, you know, nobody is pulling off some of the stuff that Shotzzy does. And that moment as well, where he hops out the window, hops back in, then flies, dolphin dives, bounces off the ledge, and Tupac just gets gunless. Like, and Tupac's not even mad. He's like, what am I meant to do about that? It was the same thing, actually. There was a clip that I shared for you guys probably several months ago now, when Drazah, I think it was on Invasion, and Shotzzy gets some crazy dive out of a window and just killed Drazah, and Drazah's like, okay, yeah, whatever. There's nothing I can do against that. That's just what happens playing Shotzzy sometimes. And this is a game with, you know, no crazy advanced movements, right? I mean, imagine if Shotzzy was playing back in games like Advanced Warfare. Like, back in those games, Hook, for example, who's known to have good movement, but Hook was known to be unbelievable at the movement in that game and was actually ahead of many of the pro players because lots of the pros had just come from boots on the ground for many years. The movement of many of the pros wasn't super clean. It was players like Nagafen, players like Hook that really dominated the movement in Advanced Warfare. But obviously, as time has progressed, we've got more movement kings in COD. Shotzzy's certainly the king among them, and the idea that you can shoot while diving, you can, when you're laying down, you can change the position that you're looking at. I'm sure Shotzzy's going to have some crazy things that he's going to come up with when this game launches. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Speaking of the whole FaZe versus, well, certain teams' rivalries, we obviously know full well FaZe versus Toronto is still a big one, and this is actually coming up tomorrow. So we have this rivalry again. Drazah versus Scrappy. Now, online, these series have certainly favoured FaZe and Drazah so far, but on LAN, you've got to remember that Scrappy's record against Drazah on LAN, I believe now is 6-1. So yes, FaZe will be the favourites for this one. Hopefully it's a close-fought series, because it's going to be quite a telling series going into the major, because it is a major, but it's not a major in maybe some of the more traditional senses, where we actually, you know, there's no fans, right, as it were. Just one final thing to mention, some big updates that the boys have been working on the Breakandboy website. They've honestly been killing it lately. There's so many improvements that they've made to breakandboy.gg over the last several months here. It's honestly great to see. So I know lots of you guys are asking for it. The map vetoes in certain series, how they've played out, that now appears on the website. There's loads of other stuff we've been working on as well. So yeah, appreciate all the feedback and the continued support on the site and the content and all that good stuff. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.